Happy Easter. And God stepped out on space, and he looked around and said, I'm lonely. Think I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. Then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other, and God said, that's good. Then God reached out, and he took the light in his hands, and God rolled the lights around in his hands until he made the sun. And he set that sun ablazing in the heavens, and the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered it up in a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and the stars. And then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world, and God said, that's good. And God, he stepped himself down, and the sun was on his right hand, and the moon was on his left. Stars was cluttered about his head, and the earth was under his feet. And God walked, and where he trod, his footsteps hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains up. Then he stopped. He looked, and he saw that the earth was hot and barren, so God stepped over to the edge of the world, and he spat out the 7 seas. He batted his eyes, and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands, and the thunders rolled, and the waters above the earth came down, and the cooling waters came down. Then the grass sprouted. Little red flowers started to blossom. Pine trees pointed their fingers to the sky, and the oak spread out his arms. The lakes cuddled down in the hollows of the ground, and the rivers ran down the sea, and God smiled again, and the rainbows appeared and curled itself around his shoulder. Then God raised his arms, and he waved his hand, and over the sea and over the land he said, bring forth, bring forth. And quicker than God could drop his head, the fishes and the fowls and the birds and the beasts swam the rivers and the seas. They roamed the forests and the woods and split the air with their wings. And God said, that's good. Then God walked around, and he looked around, and all that he had made, he looked at his sun, and he looked at his moon, and he looked at all his little bitty stars. He looked on his world with all of its living things. And God said, I'm lonely. Then God sat down on the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river, he sat down with his head in his hands. God thought and thought until he thought, I'll make a man. So up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, and by the bank of the river, he kneeled him down, and there the great God Almighty, who lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the most far corner of the night, who rounded the earth in the middle of his hand, this great God, like a mammy bending over a baby, kneeling down in the dust, toiling over a lump of clay till he shaped it in his own image. And then into it he blew the breath of life. And man became a living soul.